In 1600, 218 London merchants pooled £68,000. Their goal was straightforward: import peppercorns, clothes, and nutmeg from Asia and sell them in Europe. 250 years later, that exact same business governed 90 million people. It negotiated treaties with foreign governments, administered its own justice system, and operated as a sovereign power. This chart compares military scale of the era. On the right, the entire British Army stands at 113,000 soldiers. On the left is the British East India Company, commanding a private army of 260,000 men. This was an entity driven entirely by shareholder profit, yet it wielded more force than the empire that birthed it. To understand how standard business logic escalated into massive territorial conquest, we have to look at how this company was built. Sending wooden ships to Southeast Asia in the 17th century was notoriously deadly. The costs of crews, supplies, and vessels that simply never returned made it impossible for a single individual to finance a voyage. The solution was a joint stock structure. Multiple investors pooled fractional capital to fund a single expedition, sharing both the risk and the profits. Furthermore, a royal charter guaranteed no other English merchant could trade with Asia, locking in an absolute monopoly. But this financial advantage came with a physical vulnerability. Operating thousands of miles from home required permanent outposts, or factories, to store highly valuable goods. Out in the Indian Ocean, there was no centralized police force to call if those goods were threatened. When an organization combines a government-backed monopoly with extreme geographic isolation, it has only one option to protect its assets. It has to become its own law enforcement. The militarization started small. The company hired a handful of local guards to protect a single warehouse in Surat from pirates and rival European merchants. Here on this map of the Indian coast, we can track the escalation. A few guards at Surat turned into a small garrison. As new outposts opened in Madras and Bombay, those garrisons expanded into fortified military zones to secure the trading routes. That defensive posture vanished in 1757. During a conflict with the local ruler of Bengal, the company deployed its forces to a village called Plassey, shifting permanently from protecting assets to capturing territory. The company commander, Robert Clive, secured victory by paying key commanders in the opposing army to stand down. It functioned as a hostile corporate buyout. Through that single transaction, a merchant trading firm suddenly possessed the right to collect taxes across Bengal, one of the wealthiest and most densely populated regions in Asia. This flowchart breaks down the massive growth engine. The company took Bengal's tax revenue and directly hired tens of thousands of local Indian soldiers, or sepoys. These troops subdued neighboring powers, yielding even more revenue. The cycle accelerated until their private army reached 260,000 men. To lock down these territories, the company instituted subsidiary alliances. They forced local rulers to pay the salaries of the company troops stationed in their lands, a financial burden that virtually guaranteed the rulers would go bankrupt and remain entirely dependent on London. A letter from India to London took 6 months each way. This geographic reality meant local company officials operated in a complete oversight vacuum, making decisions for millions of people with zero accountability. When corporate officers with no connection to local agriculture prioritize shareholder dividends, the results are deadly. The company's brutal tax extraction policies directly contributed to the Bengal famine of 1770, starving an estimated 10 million people. Back in England, company men returned with fabulous wealth. They bought seats in Parliament, creating a powerful political lobby designed solely to protect their legal monopoly from government interference. What started as a shipping venture had mutated into a government, an occupying military force, and an entrenched political lobby, entirely shielded from consequences by the immense wealth it generated. By the early 1800s, the British government realized they had a problem. An independent corporation operating at this scale, with this level of corruption, had become a massive institutional liability. The breaking point arrived in 1857. A widespread, violent uprising began among the company's own sepoys and spread across northern India. The conflict was brutally fought on both sides and permanently shattered the company's authority. In 1858, the British Crown stepped in. They stripped the organization of its remaining power, abolished the company entirely, and assumed direct control over India. After 258 years of operation, the world's most powerful business was forced into the largest and most violent corporate dissolution in history. Modern corporations do not raise private armies or collect taxes at gunpoint, but the structural blueprint for how power accumulates remains identical. This diagram maps those shared tactics. On the left is the historical model, and on the right is the modern equivalent. Both rely on leveraging massive pools of capital, securing legal protections, and buying political influence to rewrite market rules in their own favor. It is a permanent feature of our economic system. Private organizations will consistently use accumulated capital to shape the environment to their advantage, often at the direct expense of those with less leverage. The East India Company began with just 218 men and 68,000 pounds. That modest arrangement eventually subjected an entire subcontinent to corporate rule. The names, the industries, and the geographies change over the centuries, but the mechanics of unchecked ambition ensure that every era breeds its own version of this company.